Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 6 p.m. Cairo local time. This is Shru Bakir, and I'll accompany you through the latest development in the region and internationally. Starting off with the headlines, followed with the details. President Sisi urged providing stable electric feeding nationwide with the approach of summer. Foreign Minister Abdel meets European Commissioner for Crisis Management on developments in Gaza. And some bread and baby food reach Gazans as Israeli aid blockade ease. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today stressed the necessity of taking the required procedures to ensure the stability of electric feeding nationwide. The president made these remarks in a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources Karim Badawi on the efforts exerted for the meeting that the citizens' needs of petroleum, substance, and the new oil explosions and reserves in a preparation for summer. President Sisi urged developing new oil and gas fields to be enlisted in the production map, intensifying drilling and exploration activities, and providing incentives to accelerate the fields of development and conduct new explosions. And the head of state also called for removing any hurdles facing investors in the petroleum, gas, and mining sectors. The meeting further touched on future petroleum and gas contracts and the efforts made of paying dues to the global companies operating in the field. President Sisi today pointed out to Egypt's efforts for developing the investment atmosphere and removing all hurdles facing investors, asserting the state's keenness and interest in paying the dues of global companies operating in Egypt. The president made these remarks as he received the executive chief officer of Shell Global Company for Oil Industry, Wael Sawan, where he paid for intensifying exploration and development activities in the petroleum giant's concession area and increasing its production rates, making the utmost benefit from the national petroleum and gas sectors and serving the interest of both sides. Swan, meanwhile, expressed gratitude for President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi over supporting bilateral cooperation and asserted the company's keenness on boosting the strategic partnership with Egypt in the field, exploring more opportunities in the promising energy sectors, and hailing the government's efforts for removing hurdles in this regard. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today cherished Britain's positive stance with regards to the Palestinian cause and the situation in the Gaza Strip. The president made the note in a phone call he received from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, where they discussed boosting bilateral ties and exploring new horizons for cooperation in different sectors. President el-Sisi briefed the British Prime Minister on his vision concerning the developments in Gaza and the efforts Egypt exerted in cooperation with Qatar, United States, to break a ceasefire agreement and allow the access of humanitarian aid and warn up. He reiterated Egypt's absolute rejection of liquefying the Palestinians' cause or displacing Palestinians from the land. The head of state pointed out to the significance of the international support for an Arab Islamic plan to launch reconstruction in Gaza, being embodied in the immediate implementation of the ceasefire deal. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and First Lady Mrs. Intisar el-Sisi today sent a cable of condolences to Omani Sultan Haytham bin Tariq and his spouse over the death of the latter's mother. They prayed to God to bless the deceased with all mercy in heavens and wished solace to her family. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Expatriates, Badr Abdelati, today retreated Egypt's full rejection of the starvation and collective punishment policies used by the Israeli against the Palestinian people. Egypt's top diplomat made these remarks in a meeting with the European Commissioner for Crisis Management, Hajj Al-Lahib, saying that Egypt attached immediate risk and accusing humanitarian aid to its people aimed at disease humanitarian condition which Palestinians there endure since March. With the Israeli complete ban of the entry of aid into the besieged Strip, the foreign minister also reviewed Egypt's efforts for hosting an early recovery and post-war Gaza International Reconstruction Conference in coordination with the European Union and international donors. Egypt today hailed as stains taken by active international parties who rejected shameful Israeli aggression in Gaza and the use of oppressive military force against unnamed innocent civilians, along with an unprecedented starving policy. The foreign ministry cited a trio statement by the leaders of France, the United Kingdom and Canada, in addition to the European Union decision on reviewing a cooperation accord with the Israeli occupation, along with the steps taken by a number of countries on the recognition of Palestinian state. Egypt the two-state solution was the only means to regain stability, security, and everlasting peace in the Middle East. The UN said it had dispatched around 90 trucks carrying aid into Gaza as international pressure intensified over the Israeli occupation forces' renewed offensive and blockade of the Palestinian territory. Stephen Dujarric, a spokesman for the UN Chief Antonio Guterres, said that 3 days after the occupation forces announced it would allow unlimited aid, the United Nations collected around 90 truckloads of goods from the Kerem Shalom crossing and dispatched them into Gaza. Humanitarian groups have said that the amount of aid entering Gaza falls far short of what is required to ease the unprecedented crisis. Israeli occupation troops said they intercepted 2 missiles launched from Yemen, and the sirens had sounded twice as the Houthis group stopped. Spokesman said the group launched a ballistic missile towards Israeli Ben Gurion Airport and 2 drones towards the Tel Aviv area. He added that it continued to fire Israel in support of Gaza's Palestinians who are facing an unprecedented aggression by the occupation forces. Indian Prime Minister Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, Engineer Hassan Al-Khatib, called on the United Arab Emirates to increase its investments in Egypt. The remarks were made during his meeting with the Emirati State Minister for Foreign Trade to review means to enhance trade ties between the two countries. The meeting also discussed economic reforms adopted by the state to create an appropriate atmosphere to encourage investors to implement mega projects in Egypt. Egypt's bourse closed higher today, aimed at purchase by local Arab and foreign investment funds against sell-off by local investors. The market capital of listed companies added 8 billion Egyptian pounds, reaching 2.2 trillion pounds at the end of the transaction of nearly 64 billion pounds. The benchmark index EGX 30 rose 0.44% above the 31,975 point mark. The equal weighted indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 climbed 0.75 and 0.69% respectively. Tottenham Spurs beat Manchester United 1-0 to win the Europa League final and its first European trophy in more than 4 decades. It is the first major title for Tottenham since it won the English League Cup in 2008 and first European triumph since it won its second UEFA Cup, the equivalent of the European League now in 1984. The title guarantees Spurs a spot in next season's Champions League and comes 6 years after the Tottenham fell short against Liverpool in the Champions League final. Barcelona announced that the club coach Hansi Flick has extended his contract until June 2027. The German led Barca to a domestic table of La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup in his first year at the helm. Flick's Barca have thrilled both in Spain and in the Champions League, where they reached the semi-finals but were knocked out by Inter Milan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for this edition of the news. Thank you for watching. That was me, Shuru Bakir.